Fran that would have today's agenda and the testimony for today all in one place. So we just decided, the committee chairs are kind of sharing best practices with each other, and that's what some of the other committees have found to be helpful. So you can also find it always going through the Kansas Legislature's website, but we thought we'd try this and give us feedback on what works and what doesn't work. We're just trying to find out how to make it easier on everybody to access the testimony. We'll start out by asking if do we have any requests for bill introductions? Okay, seeing none, we'll get right into our presentations. If you'll recall, last week we didn't quite finish up on the presentations that we had scheduled for the children's organizations. So we'll get right into those. And we've got YMCA first up, and John Mikos, is it? Mikos, okay. Welcome to committee.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the House Committee, and seniors of the Committee on Children. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you today to talk a little bit about some of the work that the Y has done. I certainly also want to thank you for all the work that you do every single day for the state of Kansas, particularly to support children and seniors in our community. We certainly have had a very challenging last 10 months or so, and certainly organizations that serve seniors and children, like the Y does, has also had some very challenging things faced before us over the last 10 months. But as a nonprofit charitable organization, our existence and why we serve is to be able to pivot and transform our services in order to meet community challenges. So our Y in our community, we've been around for over 160 years, and I'm the president and CEO for the YMCA of Greater Kansas City. And with me also here today is Jennifer Bruning, who's our executive director for our Kansas State Alliance. And our Ys serve this area all the way from Garden City down to Pittsburgh, to Atchison, Kansas City, and we're in communities all around Kansas. And when we're not where we're not, we continue to serve children and seniors. And in fact, the YMCA serves 16,000 school-age children every single day in this community. And during the summertime, our YMCAs across the state are serving over 6,000 children every single day. 1 in 4 Kansans is a youth that the Y serves. And collectively as an organization, 1 in 5 of everyone is served in the state of Kansas is served by a YMCA, of which 25% of those are seniors. So certainly we have an extended reach beyond the traditional services that you probably know us for, like swimming and health services and those type of things. But we've had to step up as an organization to ensure that we're serving children and seniors this past 10 months. And it hasn't been easy, as you can imagine. We continue to do what we have to do to make sure that we're able to provide those services in our community. So today, I just hope to be able to share with you just at least 1 or 2 things that you may not know about the YMCA and some of the work that we're doing. And one of the things that we know in the state of Kansas, particularly with seniors as well as families, is that food insecurity has been a significant issue in our state. And the YMCA, in partnering with many organizations in our communities, and we are partnering locally with our community, which allows us to be able to pivot very quickly in order to be able to serve some families. So sometimes video and pictures do a lot more than the words that I can express to you today. So I wanted to call your attention to this video. It's about 1.5 minutes that talks a little bit about the Y is doing in our communities to help seniors and families with food insecurity.
YMCA is stepping in because there's not a
We will send you. So one of the things that you are seeing is the YMCA is partnering with other organizations in our community and utilizing our parking lots in order to be able to invite those in our community to get access to fresh fruits and vegetables and food. And in most cases, it's not just for the one day, but it's in order to be able to supply the entire week. In fact, I can tell you, have given away, I believe it's over 14,000 meals, particularly the families and seniors, just in this short amount of time by using our physical footprint in order to get this distribution done. And so hopefully you'll have an opportunity to kind of look at that video. The second big issue that's touched every one of us has been what's been going on as a result of remote learning that all of our schools and all of our school districts have had to deal with. And as you can imagine, being able to be a working parent, also having to deal with education for your child who's doing remote learning while also still trying to do all the other things that you need to do has been a bit of a challenge. Our YMCAs across the state of Kansas have been able to provide options in working and partnering with churches as well as community colleges to offer parents who are working parents access to be able to have someone to be able to help with remote or even some of the hybrid learning. And in fact, to date, just to give you an idea, just in the Kansas City area alone, we are serving 1,300 families just in the Kansas City, Johnson County, Wyandotte County area alone for families to help them with remote learning and also some child care needs. We've seen a significant impact also in the educational gap as a result of some hybrid and remote learning. And so we are stepping up and working with our school districts to do and help them with some of the continuation of learning that's being done during the after-school program. Again, our organization reaches out to partners to be able to expand our services and to be able to help some of these families who don't have other options. It's also in these communities that don't have access to internet, where we're also providing some support services for those computers to be able to access the internet and having health coaches be able to help children as well as families through the remote learning. And I suspect there's another video we have that I can't show you today, but it looks like, but I will be able to, are we gonna try it? Yeah, we're gonna try this one. This one's pretty good. And well, the reason, well, and I will tell you, it's not very long. It's only about a minute long, but you'll really, it's hard for me to put into words what it means for a parent that has to choose between staying home with their child and going to work. And that shouldn't have to be a choice. And not only that, but also the responsibility that many of them don't have as educators to also to be able to teach their children throughout the whole day. And so the Ys across our communities are working and partnering with these organizations to be able to offer support. Are we ready for it? Not yet? So as that's happening, we'll come back to that because I can't 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 come back to that.
You don't want to struggle to have. My name is Brianna, and my daughter's name is Brooklyn, and I'm a single working parent. You don't want to struggle to have to just to make sure that your kid's okay. It's a lot of uncertainty when you don't know if they're going to get exactly the learning that they need. You need help sometimes. No judgment, just help. I'm proud to send Brooklyn to the Linwood Wild Learning Academy. I don't have to worry about she's not being fully engaged or not being successful with this new way of life. Somebody's there to help her that knows what they're doing. They treat her like they want her to succeed just as much as I do. When I pick Brooklyn up, I'm glad that she's been taken care of and loved. Do you feel the love?
Every single day. And I certainly know that there are other organizations around our state that are doing some incredible work. I just want to leave you today to know that your YMCA's in the state of Kansas, as a charitable organization, continues to do what it can locally in order to lift up and support the needs of our community, whether it's for families with children that have preschoolers to school age, all the way to seniors with social isolation. In Kansas City, we had made over 20,000 phone calls just in the last 6 months, checking in on our seniors to see how they're doing. And as you can imagine, that one phone call is more than just 2 minutes long. It's a lot longer. So our team continues to do what it can to be able to support our families and our seniors in our community. I thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you'll have an opportunity to see the other video of some of the work the Y is doing in food insecurity. And if there's time, I certainly would stand for any of your questions.
Okay, Xavier, can we see that first video?
While we're waiting, any questions?
Yeah,
you may have?
committee, do we have questions? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Growing up in Atchison, the Y was always a big part of my life. Dub Barrett, you may not know Dub, but was there for 50 years. Going to Pittsburgh, the Y was a big part. Having 7 children, we overly used the Y. Then I have a daughter that's in Andover. They got a beautiful Y. Yeah. Where does most of your monies to keep open come from?
That's a great question, and we do rely on donors as well as program participants to allow us to be able to funding opportunities to deliver services. And as you can imagine, the operating costs to be able to deliver some of these services continue to be a challenge. I'll just take an example like right now, although there have been some from CARES Act funding and those type of things, most of our mid-sized, the larger Ys don't even receive some of the government subsidy because we have way too many employees to afford the opportunity for things like PPP. But it all comes back to what we are able to do in our communities through fundraising and some of the program fees that we're able to charge to be able to help subsidize some of our programs.
More hungry. They didn't know.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I appreciate what the Y's done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have one more question. Okay.
Prior to the pandemic, 1 in 7 children were hungry. They didn't know where their next food or meal was going to come from. Since the pandemic, 1 in 4. Food insecurity does not discriminate. There's so many organizations that are doing this work. The YMCA is stepping in because there's not enough organizations doing this work. While there's so many, there's still not enough because the need is growing every single day. We've become a Y without walls. We're extending our services into our parking lots. We're recognizing that we have a line of cars that extend down to our highways. At any one of our mobile food pantries, you'll notice that we have anywhere from 10 to 15 volunteers. They're hustling, they're sweating, they're putting their hearts and souls into every vehicle that comes by. I can tell you, time after time, we often see families that are just overjoyed with the items that we're providing to them. And we are generous because it's not just about a meal supplement for that day. It's groceries for that week. Even past the pandemic, food insecurity is going to continue to exist. And the YMCA is going to step into that gap and continue to serve our community where we are needed.
Thank you. Thanks for making that work for us. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to acknowledge that this has also been on TV. I've seen these videos or ads. I think it's on ABC or NBC. And so I'm hoping that promotes what all of the good you are doing, and the families, when they see this, know where to reach out, because it's a great, great community effort. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you for saying that, and we really do appreciate your support.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Bonner YMCA has been a home for our family, and the greatest thing of all, my little niece is now right at 10, has SMA, which is a genetic disorder, and she will never walk. But she swims at the Bonner Y for an hour at a time, and according to her doctors, that was one of the greatest rehabilitations for her, even though she's in an electric wheelchair. The Y helps fund their membership because they have so many costs involved in that type of thing. They deserve our support.
Representative Wagoner.
Thank you for coming to committee. I do have kind of a general question. You know, I'm from Hutchinson, somewhat familiar. I mean, the YMCA, is it not as an organization? I mean, isn't your biggest struggle with all of the other, gyms and, health provider, I mean, not health providers, but, exercise type venues? I mean, do you guys, going forward, are you optimistic, or is it a real struggle?
Yeah, well, to begin with, certainly we're very proud of the work that we do around healthy living, but the YMCA is so much more than a fitness center. We are involved in so many other different things that the work that the Y does is special. And so our challenges that we run into is not necessarily those things as much as that there are other potential things for the future. I'll give you an example. We continue to look for opportunities to have even government agencies to be able to support the work that we're trying to do. Sometimes we may have policies or regulations that may prevent us to be able to do something as quickly. I'm very proud to say, like, for example, in the state of Kansas allowed us to quickly move to allow us to be able to do remote learning centers very, very quickly. So it's those types of challenges more so than what you would describe as fitness centers that are in the community. So that doesn't become the greatest challenge for us. In fact, the greatest challenge for us right now is the pandemic. The one thing that we do better than anyone is social engagement. And that's the one thing that we're not able to do today, which is social engagement.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, thank you so much for the videos and for showing up here today. I appreciate it. Can you tell us about the unfair advantage that YMCA has, piggybacking on these last two questions, that they have with other healthcare or health fitness facilities in Kansas because they don't pay property tax? That's where you get the majority of your revenue that offsets your costs, so you don't have to compete with everyone else that does have to pay those property taxes in and around Kansas.
Yeah, and thank you for your question. I probably have some follow-ups I'd like to ask, but we certainly don't get money from property tax. When we look at, and I can just speak specifically to the Kansas City area where I'm actually the CEO, the YMCA gives back over $2 million every year in charitable services to our community. So the services for which a non-for-profit provides, and the reason we have an existence for not having property tax or sales tax is to give community benefit. Now, if we were to reverse course on that, I think we can have a conversation about the competitive advantage, but we don't. Our purpose in our existence is to ensure that we're able to give everyone access, and we demonstrate every year the dollars that we give back specifically to the community that makes our services either at no cost or very low cost for our community. Give you an example, just from the videos that you saw up here just on food insecurity. All that stuff is being done at no charge completely, but our infrastructure that it takes in order to deliver that, the payroll staff, the technology system, all those still have to be paid for regardless. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're certainly giving back more than what we are receiving from any type of property tax exemption that the YMCA receives.
And a follow-up, Madam Chair. When it came to COVID-19, what was your policy once your members had their pays taken on direct deposit and you all reopened your facilities? What was your policy when people were in the crunch of COVID-19 of refunding them the funds when they had not utilized your facilities? As you can check whenever they come in at low cost, no cost, and check in with their facial ID and everything like that.
We actually sent notices to all of our members regarding that. We gave people an opportunity to cancel temporarily and not have to pay their memberships at all. We gave the option if they wanted to contribute to the Y rather than provide membership, they can do that. So the option was completely up to the members as to what they wanted to do. We were completely open to canceling their membership or leaving their membership intact.
Okay, other questions? All right, thank you.
Great,
Thanks
thank you
for
very much.
joining us. Okay, next up, the rest of them will be virtual. Linda Bass from KVC.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. We don't see you yet, but there you are.
Okay.
Welcome to committee, Linda.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm Linda Boss, president for KVC Kansas. Since many of you may be familiar with our organization already, I thought I would take the time to provide just a brief overview and then spend the remainder of my time this afternoon discussing highlights that have occurred since the last legislative session. KVC Kansas has been a provider of community-based services for more than 50 years. Currently, we are a foster care case management provider in Kansas in 11 counties, and we serve approximately 1,700 children and their families through reunification and adoption services. We are also a child placing agency, so we support through recruitment, training, and ongoing support more than 900 kinship and foster families. And we are also a provider of in-home family support, outpatient behavioral health care, drug and alcohol support services, parent education, and other critical prevention services. Like many organizations, a lot has changed during the pandemic, and there have been some positives that have come out of a really challenging situation. Like many other organizations, our use of telehealth greatly expanded in March in order to be able to safely reach children and families in a timely manner. We had already built the infrastructure, which served us really well, which allowed our staff were already 100% mobile in the field with laptops and printers and hotspots and cell phones. And so we had the infrastructure to switch over quite quickly to telehealth. We were able to help support families because families were not used to connecting with us through video technology. We did almost everything in person. So we did help support families through distributing iPads to caregivers who did not have a laptop or something in their home to allow them to connect virtually. And we also helped to connect them to internet service providers if they didn't have reliable internet service in their area. I'm also proud to share that despite the fact that we have had increased use of telehealth, which is wonderful in and of itself, we also have continued to provide in-person contact with children and families throughout the entire pandemic while following all safety protocols. You know, our work is so critical in that to move to telehealth is needed in many situations. But when we're talking about parents and children seeing each other, who were living separate from one another, who have endured a lot of trauma, telehealth doesn't always work for all families, and families need to be together. We know that the more visits they have, the more likely they are to reunify timely with their families. And so we right away were able to mobilize with the support of a lot of other organizations, PPE for our staff and our families. And we have not had any cases of known COVID transfer from employees to clients or clients to employees. And we, relate that to our staff taking the situation very seriously, following safety protocols and using PPE, but also allowing families to come together in person, which is so important. We've continued to partner with DCF and the other child welfare organizations in Kansas to safely reduce the number of children in care. Statewide, we're sitting around 6,800 children currently in foster care. And although that number is still high, It is the lowest number since the end of 2016. So we are seeing that number come down, which we want to see that number continue to come down. KVC has continued to expand our kinship support. We want as many children living with a relative or someone that they know. Our goal is 60% or higher and we want to reach that goal this year. One of the ways that we're doing that is we doubled the size of our kinship department to allow more support to kinship caregivers, more family finding efforts to ultimately increase placement stability and also access to timely mental health services. I love that the YMCA and John Miko showed that video, because for the first time ever this summer and fall, KVC hosted food drives of our own in partnership with Liberty Food Services, and we were able to provide more than $1 million worth of food to families in the community. And this is not just KVC families. These were open to any family in the community that could use some extra food assistance. We also provided holiday gifts to children and families in foster care, which we do every year. This year we were nervous. What would the pandemic mean in terms of giving from our community donors? They came out in full force. We were able to provide more than 2,500 children and families with holiday gifts, which was a record for us. In fact, every child in services with us received holiday gifts, regardless of any program that they were involved in. We continue to expand our quality assurance team, which is the team that's responsible for overseeing all of our documentation and making sure that everything in the file reflects the work that's being done on the case. So we're excited about continuing to expand that team. Earlier this year, in the middle of a pandemic, which wasn't easy, we got up and running a new prevention service in Northeast Kansas called Project Rise, which is focused on moving families out of poverty and also strengthening adult to adult and adult to child relationships. We've also expanded our Safe With Me program, which is a batterers intervention program. And to our knowledge, this is the only batterers intervention program in the state which is embedded within the Child Welfare Case Management Organization, which we think is really critical because a lot of our families that are in services do have a history of domestic violence, and oftentimes the dynamics that occur in a domestic violence relationship also occur in a relationship between parents and children that is characterized by physical abuse. So being able to assess and identify and respond to those timely is really critical to ensuring that kids can return home safely. We've also agency-wide have an increased focus on customer service. We've launched a Kindness Change Lives employee training and recognition program. And we've also intensified our focus on diversity and inclusion. And we think those two components, along with our pandemic response and our other ongoing coaching and support to staff, has had a direct result in our turnover. Our staff turnover rate is actually half of what it was this same time last year from July to December. And it's significantly below the national average, which we know staff turnover in child welfare leads to a whole host of other problems. And so if we can retain our staff, that just means better services for children and families and better outcomes. And lastly, I just wanted to let you know that we have changed our tagline to really emphasize the importance of connection. So you will hear us as KVC Kansas, and we all need connection. And that concludes my presentation. I'd love to accept any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Linda. Questions, committee? Oh, goodness, you're getting off easy today. Well, thank you for joining us. No questions.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sheryl Rathbun from St. Francis Services, and she's virtual.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Yes, welcome to committee.
Thank you. And I don't know if you can see me or not.
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, good afternoon as well. Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Sheryl Rathbun. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for St. Francis Ministries. I've worked for St. Francis for about 43 years. 22 at our PRTF in Ellsworth as the clinical director, and the last 21 years at our corporate office oversighting our client services. And so it looks like you have I'm not going to read this entire document. I want you to know that. We really appreciate the opportunity to provide our overview of St. Francis and our foster care work and child welfare work, and our direct work serving the children and their caregivers every day. Our primary goal is always child safety and family well-being, no matter what role we're playing. Additionally, I definitely want to thank you all for the support of of the Family First implementation and the advancements in the PRTF system. There have been major improvements in that process, and the care for Kansas families has improved so much as the result of that work. St. Francis has been a champion of Family First nationally as well as within Kansas. We employ about 1,080 dedicated social workers, therapists, and other staff members across Kansas. And so with that, I'm going to now go over some of the services we provide. I want to tell you, when I actually got hired in 1978 as a social worker at St. Francis, it was even back then that it was really strongly emphasized that we do any work, even though these kids were in residential, that we do in-home work, because that's where work actually and change is actually affected with families. We took kids from all over the United States in addition to Kansas, and anytime I worked with the family, St. Francis sent me to the home. And so it was with that base in 1996 that we received one of the very first family preservation contracts with Kansas. And with that, we've been awarded 2 of the contracts, grants in Kansas for Family First. So family-centered treatment, we began in December of 19. It's an evidence-based model that really focuses on families who's at risk of having their children removed. And probably the most important thing, since you can read all of this, FCT has had successful outcomes in several states and jurisdictions working with families that have multi-generational system involvement. We currently serve about 82 families, and in the initial 6 months, 98% have not experienced any out-of-home placement during that service. We continue to partner with FCT in terms of the research regarding continuing to meet their evidence base. And we do that service in Kansas as well as several other states. We also have Seeking Safety, and it's an evidence-based treatment program designed for families dealing with substance use and trauma and at risk of their children being removed from the home. One of the most important things we know is that substance use is one of the highest reasons children get removed from the home. And for those of you who know or don't know, substance use and abuse is a disease that steals your soul. And it's one of the most difficult things to mitigate and change for families. It's just not as easy as it looks. So we are very excited to be able to provide this service. And we currently serve 27 families, with several areas asking for us to be able to increase that. And that is our goal. In addition to the in-home services, we also have one of the grants, actually several grants, several areas for our reintegration foster care services, which is now called case management. We serve, as of today, actually 3,055 children. I checked my numbers before. We use evidence-based family and child evaluations to guide our planning and our service delivery. We recruit and train very similar to what you heard from Linda with KBC. We have over 600 licensed foster families, in addition to working with other CPAs across the state. And we, in addition to those 600 homes that we sponsor, we support 629 kinship relative homes that serve about 1,050 of our children. And as you can see, our grants are in Wichita and then West Area 1 and 2. We have outpatient behavioral health services. We do substance disorder treatment, serving teens, as well as parents that are within our grants as well as outside of our grants. Perhaps the one I would emphasize is we have a gender-specific evidence-based program that's for pregnant women. And to this date, since we've had that in place for probably the last 10 years, we have had almost 100% of women who have given birth to drug-free, their babies have been born drug-free. We also do mental health services and parent skill building for families that are in the system. And again, we have our parent management training in Oregon. That's an in-home service that serves our seriously emotionally disturbed children and families. We have Strengthening Families, which is a group model. We have Trauma Systems Therapy, which is our base trauma program throughout the organization, in addition to the other ones we do. Our trauma assessments, which is a Dr. Perry neurosequential model, is an assessment that looks at the child and the family within the context of their trauma. And then we do a meeting with the community that the child is in to go over with the school system, those providing any services for the child and the family, to look at how we as a community can impact change. So that's for those more complex cases. Our psychiatric and medication management is also specific to our complex cases. The children that we target and the parents that we target are those who cannot have their needs met in the community. And it's provided by the same psychiatric staff that do our PRTF and QRTP services. The one thing I want to share with you that I'm very excited about is our fatherhood program. Many people focus, and most of us traditionally think about mothers, and research shows that father involvement is crucial to child development. Fathers role model to their sons how to be an adult male, as well as a father to their own children, and how girls should experience a relationship with a male. St. Francis had a contract with DCF for several years to deliver the fatherhood pilot project that you can read about. And we served 500 fathers and 100 mothers in that project. Well, you might ask, why are you focused on mothers in a fatherhood project? Well, that's to engage mothers to help them understand how crucial fathers are to the development of their children. And so based upon our success and application, we obtained an almost $5 million grant for over 5 years, utilizing our evidence-based program to further that work across the state. The University of Kansas is doing our local impact evaluation that will measure the outcomes that you see listed there. So those are all of those pieces. Our residential services, we have Therapeutic Foster Program down in Southwest Kansas that serves our Kansas Department of Correction teens. We have 2 qualified residential treatment programs, and then a psychiatric residential treatment facility in Salina. So some of our achievement indicators, I just really wanted to talk about how St. Francis continues to exceed national standards for prevention of maltreatment, having our kids in a family-like setting. And some of our other notable performance measures are that our placement stability has had a major review of processes, as many of the programs have across Kansas, and we are very close to meeting that outcome. In addition to those pieces, we have, in partnership with KU, designed an impact survey across all our programs, regardless of the service that's provided. We developed a tool with KU that looks at how our services impact our clients' lives, especially regarding developing protective factors and resilience. We've been very excited about that work and the outcomes that have shown that we are definitely impacting the protective factors and resilience. And we're asked to present at the national conference in Florida, as well as our Kansas Governor Conference. In addition, we've been partnering with KU on a repeated measure requirement by Joint Commission, focusing on assessments that inform either the case plan of our contract families or our treatment plans in our outpatient and inpatient programs. And again, it's focused on assuring that the families have input and that the plans change based upon that input. Based on our 75 years of work, we're one of 14 organizations across the nation who have a seat on the Joint Commission Behavioral Healthcare Standard Advisory Board, and we have a seat on the Child Welfare League of America Policy Setting Committee, focused on setting national agendas. Our long-term history has led us to those type of involvement, and then probably last but not least, winding up, I would just also say, while I did not focus on it, we also engaged in many of the types of COVID responses that Linda Boss talked about with KBC. So I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to present today and look forward to any questions you might have for me.
Thank you. Committee, do we have questions? Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for virtually being here. Are you prepared to comment upon the recent news coming out of Nebraska and Kansas with the underbid in the Omaha area and the impact that'll have upon the kids you're serving in Kansas?
Absolutely. Do you want me to just make a comment, or would you like to ask me a question and then I'm saying yes, I'm prepared to comment?
I'd listen to your comment and maybe follow up with the question.
Okay. So I think that the best way to say is there's no secret. It's been in the Kansas news, the Nebraska news, and that we no longer have several leaders in position at our organization. Bill Weimark was one of those folks. Bill Clark is our interim CEO, and Bill has gathered a leadership team together that has spent, I cannot tell you how many hours making sure that our organization becomes and is financially stable, and that our clients and families in care are not shorted or deprived of services at all. I've been a part of that leadership team as the chief clinical officer, and we have actually cut $8.65 million by divesting ourselves of operations outside of the United States and having very tough conversations, removing positions that we thought we could get away with not having, that were not related or impactful of the direct services. So $8.65 million is a lot of money, and we did it so that we could sustain the work that we are doing in Kansas and Nebraska, as well as Texas and Arkansas and Mississippi. And I know you didn't ask about those, but we really focused on financial sustainability and viability so that our services and our clients are not impacted. We have done major work, and I would just say that in October, our cash situation was dire, and our home run has been in that consolidation and reorganizing and focusing. We see that we are gaining ground and should have cash neutral viability. Our work with Nebraska has agreed that while we have been, while our prior leaders underbid that contract, Nebraska has agreed to work with us to make sure that we are financially solvent to sustain and maintain and make sure that their clients are served. I'm not sure that answered.
I'll process that and maybe let other committee members ask questions. I may follow back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Wagner.
No, thank you for coming to committee. I had not really related to anything that's been in the news recently, but just in general, I'm still relatively new to the committee and trying to understand this. So St. Francis, you guys have over 3,000 of the foster kids in Kansas, which is about 40% of the market, I guess, statewide, if I'm not correct.
45.
And so, you know, the social system here in Kansas, so you guys bid out on these contracts for different areas, like every year, every other year? How does that whole thing work? And then what is sort of St. Francis? I mean, why do they like you versus one of the other competing options that they have? I mean, if you don't mind explaining what you consider your advantage.
So we bid approximately every 4 years based upon when DCF places the bids, the grants out for bid. So when those are placed out for bid, we then we bid on more than what we always get, if that makes sense. So as an example, the 3 areas that we have right now, we actually bid for more than that, but those were the 3 that we were granted. And So in part of that bid, there are two pieces to it. One is, what is our model of service delivery? And of course, then the other piece is, and what do we think that it's going to cost to implement that model? And you present those separately. Why does St. Francis get the places that we get? What advantage do we have? We have a huge, I would say in the Western area, we have a strong history of providing services in the rural area, and our outcomes are very, very favorable. And so I would assume that we get chosen because we have demonstrated positive outcomes, positive work with our families, positive models, based upon the cost of what that would be. So, and I think that the other piece is that it could, the question might be, so why didn't we get other areas? I think DCF has felt strongly, and I don't want to speak for them, that there needs to be more than one provider in the state. And that keeps us all competitive, not lackadaisical, and keeps us moving forward.
Other questions? I might ask my own question. Recently in the news as well, there were reports of employees fraudulently reporting hours or home visits, and I'm just wondering what sort of corrective action has been taken within your organization?
So those reports, we knew fairly quickly that those happen. In fact, I believe they've happened some time ago. St. Francis has a very robust reporting system in terms of risk management, quality assurance, and the minute those pieces were found out, discovered, the immediate action was to relieve the employees of their employment, of their jobs. In addition, we put practices in place to do a more thorough review of our documentation. And so our quality committee came together. Once you see a hole, you've got to start looking at, how did this hole happen? How did this even, because we're always focused on assuring that there's quality documentation. So the quality committee came together, and also working with DCF has put some practices in place to do more random reviews of documentation of our employees' services. I'm not sure, Madam or Representative Concanon, if that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. You feel like that adequately covers what the issue was?
Yes.
Other questions? Representative Owsley.
Thank you, and thank you for being prepared to make a comment on that. Kind of a big deal, and I'm happy to hear that the 2 personnel changes in the papers aren't the only ones, because I didn't see any way that only 2 individuals could be responsible for, the financial mismanagement that's been reported. I'm trying to wrap my head around how you, in Nebraska, $110 million through an emergency no bid contract, and then, but as a Kansas legislator, I'm supposed to feel comfortable that our kids in Kansas are being taken care of when there's such dire financial troubles just to the north of us.
I'm not hesitating because I don't know the answer. I think I'm trying to articulate it as well as I can. I would say that Bill was very ready to walk away from that if we could not get the support from Nebraska that we needed, knowing that the current leadership was not in charge of that negotiation. But we are now in charge of what we have. And so we were ready to walk away, and I think he was very clear about that when he met with the Nebraska legislators. So this is not a secret. He was very clear about, if we cannot get the support we need to do this right in Nebraska, we have to walk away, because we cannot compromise the work that we're doing in other states, including the majority of the work, which is in Kansas. And I think that was heard loud and clear, that we have to be able to do our work here, and anything we do cannot compromise the work that we're doing with our children and families. We feel confident at this point that Kansas children and families have not been shorted in terms of the services we have provided, and we are working extremely closely with DCF on assuring that that continues to happen, and our outcomes continue to be extremely strong. I can only say that to you, that they are not slid based upon this, nor will we let them. I want to give you that assurance.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, Cheryl. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Johnson. Oh, okay. Other questions? Cheryl, we heard from KVC about their workforce. I'm wondering how the workforce situation is within your organization.
That is perhaps, Representative Concanon, Madam Chair, one of our biggest challenges, and that has become one of a focus of our strategic plan. I would tell you that our workforce turnover is not as strong as what Linda just reported from KVC. I would also share with you that in all my years, I live in Ellsworth, Kansas. I don't know how many of you know where that is. So it's right in the middle of the state, north, south, east, and west. Even on when things are great, the workforce challenge in that part of the state is always a challenge. And as an example, even with our psychiatric care, we have to grow our own. People do not move there unless they love it. And I would be lying to you if I didn't say this current challenge has made that a concern, because people are worried. And so we have focused very strongly on that. We are not worse than the national average, but we're not better, as Linda reported at KVC. We are at the national average in terms of our workforce turnover. And but definitely, as we've been doing, once we've been able to finalize our financial situation under the current things that we've been talking about, we have now we've got it where we think it needs to be, and we are now focusing our work on our strategic plan in those areas. So the short answer is, we're not worse than the national average, but I don't know we're in half like Linda reported for KVC.
Well, I appreciate that response, and I'll tell you, I represent the Beloit area, so I absolutely know where Ellsworth is.
I bet you do, from sports and all of those pieces, right?
Yeah. Make many trips to the south. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is off topic. Are you kin to Dalen Rathbun by any chance?
I don't think so. So let me just share with you that I actually grew up with, my father was career military. So I moved to Kansas when I was in high school. And my goal had not been to stay in Kansas, but after I graduated from Pittsburgh with my bachelor degree in social work, I moved to Ellsworth. My max was 2 years. I was planning to go back to California, and I fell in love with two things: St. Francis, and I will tell you, I have a deep love for this organization, and my husband, who grew up in Ellsworth. And I have learned to just love that part of Kansas. But I will tell you that marrying a Rathbun, my maiden name's Karchevsky. Marrying a Rathbun's like marrying a Smith. There are a lot of them in Kansas. So there's another long answer to your question.
Thank you.
Representative Johnson, I'm not related to him either, but I know him.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Where does he live?
He actually coached at El Saline there for a while.
Really?
Yeah,
Went to college at Bethany and lives, I think, in Bennington.
Really?
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
only thing. I'm done
Yeah.
talking now.
The full rundown. Representative Wagner.
Again, thank you for coming to committee. And I do have just a general, being not quite aware of the situation with Nebraska and such, but so St. Francis Ministries, you're based out of Ellsworth, but you guys you work with like Texas and all these other states, you have multiple states. Is it all just one financially organization, or are those totally separate, independent, the work in other states?
So we're actually, our corporate office is in Salina. I just happen to live in Ellsworth. So our corporate office is in Salina, and Ellsworth was our very first St. Francis program. Our corporations are separate. So we have many different budgets, and it's based upon the state and the program so that we can keep them financially separate as well. So that if there's an impact in one state, it should not impact the other state, if that makes sense. And I think I'm answering you correctly.
And just one other thing, I'm curious about the scope. I know you say in Kansas you have over 1,000, dedicated workers and such. What's the totality of sort of the St. Francis network in all the other states that St. Francis works? I mean, how many employees? What kind of annual revenue?
Sure. So we have about 1,400 employees, and since I shared with you that 1,080 are in Kansas, that gives you the idea that the majority of our work is in Kansas. So our operations in some of the other states are much, much smaller, except for actually Omaha. Our programs in Oklahoma are just about 200 foster homes. That's all the work we have there. We have an adult IDD program in Mississippi, about 48 clients, so that's very small. Our Arkansas work is all families first in-home type work. So they are much smaller. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that I can't think off the top of my head what the entire package of money is for all these programs, but I know I'm embarrassed to tell you I cannot think of it right now, but I can get that for you.
Thank you for being transparent.
Other questions?
I'd like to ask something.
Oh, sorry, I forget that we've got some online. Who do we have here?
Cheryl Helmer.
Oh, Representative Helmer, go ahead.
Right. I didn't get my computer working toward the beginning, so I hope this isn't redundant. But I have, I guess it could be investigated, several of the homes, and so I have a heightened sense of awareness and concern. The first thing, today what I did before we came to the meeting is I looked up all of the different associations. There's anywhere from 6,000 to 9,000 listed of children in foster care. Can you tell me the why with the different organizations? It seems like that there should be a link, whether it be the state or whatever, that there should be a published number that maybe sets us a little bit more comfortable that we know there's only 8,100 and everybody's publishing that same number, or 7,100 or something. Everybody's publishing a different number of children in adoptive care. And that's how it always has been. Do you understand what my question is?
I think you're asking, why do all the different organizations have different numbers?
Like TFI has one, St. Francis has one, DCF has another number. Anywhere from 6,000 almost up to 9,000 children in adoptive care as of today.
I'm not, well, I would definitely say DCF would be the totality for our state correct number. I think St. Francis, if you're looking at our actual website, I don't know if it's Kansas centric. We actually talk about we might have 10,000 children and families in care, but that includes not just our out-of-home work. It includes our in-home work, our residential work. It includes the work we do in the other states.
I'm just looking at foster care, foster children.
Just foster children.
Just foster children.
I know that our site would say for us, we have 3,000, it changes on any given day. So when I wrote this report, it was 3,010. As of today, it's 3,055. So it fluctuates. And then because I would only be reporting the number that we have. Linda, would you agree that's probably correct, that you would have that same number? I would not be reporting the Kansas overall number.
Correct. And then the number that I shared during my testimony, the 6,829, that is data from DCF, and DCF does share the data with contractors at least weekly. And I do not know where on their website that they publish this, but that would be a great question for one of us to take back to DCF.
Yes.
I suspect that on their website, they do publish on a regular basis the current number of children in out-of-home care.
And that's very similar to what they reported in their overview when they were here,
Right.
I believe, last week. So Representative Helmer, that's a question that we can address to DCF next time they're in front of the committee.
Okay. The other thing I grew concerned about was licensing, and if you covered it, I apologize. Did you cover licensing and inspection of homes?
Do you have a question about it?
Yes, I'm asking if the one home that I'm talking about is the one in Wellington. Do you cover licensing and inspection of homes? What I was concerned about was giving licenses maybe too early, before they were, like the licenses are supposed to be given out at a certain time after certain inspections.
Right. And so we follow state and federal guidelines regarding licensing of homes based upon and we work with all the CPAs. We don't work independently of that. All the CPAs work on what's the required training, what is the required process, and the license actually cannot even be given until it's also approved by the DCF licensing oversight. And again, I'm going to ask Linda if I'm saying anything different than what you know, but I'm fairly sure I'm correct in all of my work, that we sponsor agencies, or we sponsor homes. We take them through the required MAP training that Kansas supports. We then meet with the family. We work with them on their home environment. And once they've passed all of those pieces, then we present them for licensing, but we don't license them without that DCF piece as well in terms of the licensing oversight of homes. And so I don't know if they're licensed too early, but we work with the family then very closely once they've received their license, which children, the type of children that we think they're ready to take. And oftentimes we also have them take not long-term permanent placements. We have them do respite placement until they're comfortable. So I'm not sure how to answer that, whether I think they're licensed too early. They have to meet all the requirements.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, again, and thank you, Sheryl. I thought the previous question about the different budgets was a good one, and it reminded me that I'd read the other day in the Omaha World Herald in Clark's testimony, it states that St. Francis used money from Kansas contracts to cover the $10 million shortfall in early 2020. It goes on to say that the new Nebraska contract will back pay the $10 million borrowed from Kansas. But I just wanted to point that out, that's the sort of thing that gives me real concern for the best interest of our kids, working with St. Francis. So I won't ask you to comment on that. You can if you'd like to, but I would just say that we wish St. Francis a speedy recovery from this because our kids need it.
Thank you. And I will comment. I will simply say that should not have happened. And it will not happen again. And it should not have happened in the first place. That's the only way I know how to comment on that. That should have never happened. We know that.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, we're going to need to move on. We have one more presenter, but Sheryl, we really appreciate you coming and taking the tough questions and presenting in front of our committee today.
Thank you. And I would just like to end saying, I love our Kansas children and families. And we will dedicate ourselves, continue to go forward with that. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be as transparent as I could.
Well, we appreciate that too. Okay, we'll move on to Rochelle Roosevelt from TFI Family Services. Rochelle, are you? Yes, we can hear you. Welcome
and you
to
can
the
see
committee.
me. Yes, thank you so much. Here's a little so. Thank you, Chair Kincannon and members of the committee. Again, my name is Rochelle Roosevelt. I'm the Senior Vice President of Permanency at TFI, and I am pleased to present testimony about our agency and our services throughout the state of Kansas. We have had 55 years of experience, over 55 years of experience in providing child welfare services, which include foster care, group home care, case management, independent living, psychiatric residential treatment, behavioral health services, adoption services, visitation, foster care services. Our mission is devoted to the strength of family. And I'm going to talk about 3 of our main programs today, but I can answer questions about others. I'm going to talk about our permanency case management program. I'm going to talk about our foster care program briefly, and then also talk about our family pres services. We provide many other services in addition to that, including some family first services as well. So we received responsibility of the Children's Permanency Case Management Services from KVC in Area 4 and St. Francis Ministries in Area 8 on October 1st of 2019. Our testimony says 2020. That's a typo. We currently have approximately 1,385 children in out-of-home placement. That's a reduction of 55 since our prior reports in August. And in aftercare, we serve about 344 children, which is an increase of 64 children from August. We're successfully ensuring that children are not in offices overnight. We have practically eliminated office stays as a result of an inability to locate placement since February. And we have had great success with our special response team grants in reducing the number of children missing from placement and shortening the length of time that kids are gone from placement. On December 29th, only 3% of all children in DCF custody who were missing from placement were under our supervision. We continue to use family finding, solution-based casework, and trust-based relational intervention models in our work. And we have made good progress in placing children in relative or kinship, or what we like to call non-stranger care. So 41% of our children, if you look at both of our areas combined, are in those types of placements. We, like St. Francis, have had difficulty filling case management positions, especially in our more rural counties. And so that is one of our biggest challenge that we try to every day are trying to come up with new ideas to solve. Lack of community resources, such as substance abuse treatment for children and adults, and attendant care for children with severe and behavioral health and intellectual developmental disabilities, continues to be a big barrier for us in keeping kids in foster and kinship placement, and also a barrier to reunification efforts. We need more of those services in the community. The high acuity of needs of crossover youth have intersected with the juvenile justice system with limited resources for those youth is also a challenge. And especially challenging for us are the older youth who are physically aggressive. They threaten, intimidate, or assault staff and their caregivers. And trying to find placements and services for those youth is very challenging. As a child placing agency, our foster care program, they are working hard to recruit foster families. We recently had a 3-month-long campaign and ended in December. And across all of our states, we recruited over 1,000 foster homes. In Kansas, we recruited 300 new foster homes that are, people to be foster homes who are in the process of becoming a foster home. Right now, we sponsor 421 foster homes. We have 42 kinship homes in Kansas. Our family preservation services started accepting referrals in January of 2020 for the West region. And as of December 31st, we have served 383 families. We use a couple of different evidence-based models, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or AFCBT, and TFCBT, and alternatives for families cognitive behavioral therapy, which is we call AFCBT. Those models engage in the family in a trauma-informed, culturally sensitive manner that focuses on skills building, insight, and family connections. Our Tier 2 model includes AFCBT and solution-based case management. Those practices encourage strength-based skills building and resource development. We are focused on the importance of father engagement as well when it's safe to do so, and helping families identify their support system to grow the safety net for the family and the children in the family unit. Family Press staff work with DCF and we've really embraced the team decision model when families are struggling, and risk factors may be increasing as the family moves through the program. We have maintained 95% of all of our families who have been referred. Those have been maintained in-home during the service period for Family Pres. We continue to develop our practices to ensure the quality of services is meeting fidelity and make improvements where needed. We are committed to strengthening families and finding innovative solutions as we work together to meet the needs of children and families in Kansas. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have questions? Okay. You got off easy. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Okay, that is all I have on the agenda. Seems like I had one more thing I wanted to say before we leave. We have 2 bill hearings tomorrow. Yeah, so we'll have a busy day tomorrow. Fran says be on time. All righty, thanks, we're adjourned.